Okay, next we're going to talk about a really impressive and kind of terrifying functionality that exists in the seemingly simple IK Multimedia Synth Pro, which is the matrix, which is to say, now there's a certain economy in this interface for sure, but what they've done is internally there is basically a modular setup system so that you can define what functions modulate which outcomes, which makes this go from a relatively simple analog synthesizer to a basically modular synthesizer to a degree. I mean, obviously it's not set up so that you could do a full-on modular patch, but it is what is often called like modularity. So I'm going to show you a little bit about that. All you have to do, of course, to begin is to press the matrix button. When we do so, we see matrix down here, and it says mod number or mod n and then an asterisk, whatever that means. Source, destination, and amount, which is super simple. You're basically just making a patch from the source to the destination and deciding the amount. So first, let's go to mod n, which gives you how many? 16 banks. You have 16 possible modulation connections to explore. So let's just do one. Okay, we're on mod 1. Let's go to source. We'll leave it at velocity. Destination, let's do something simple like filter 1 cutoff. And then, so this is the sound. And let's add an amount. So now velocity is controlling the filter cutoff of filter 1. So the harder you press, the more open the filter is going to be. Of course, you could set negative outcomes as well. In the amount, you could do actually negative. So then, but here, let's stay in the positive. And so the harder you press, the more open the filter cutoff is. And that's as simple as it is. All you have to do is choose a bank, a modulation channel, select a possibility. Let's see what we have next. Mod wheel. Let's have mod wheel control, I don't know, let's do filter cutoff resonance. Okay, and then amount 64. Okay, so now so you get the idea, and I hope you do. Basically, you're just choosing a channel, one of the 16 modulation channels. You're choosing a source, and you're choosing a destination, and the amount. It's super simple and relatively fast. And you might recall, like for example, we could go here and go to mod 3. And let's choose the source, something that we talked about earlier, LFO1 now is going to control oscillator 1's, how about wave? And then we'll do the amount. Then of course you could go to LFO1 and choose the whatever modulation source you want to be. So already we have all of these modulations going on. And that's only 3 of the 16. So you can imagine how crazy you can go with this. Now, I imagine your next question is, okay, Mark, but what are the sources and destinations? And I just wanted to give you, sort of a sense of what would happen if you just patched several things. So this is how it works. And of course, there is so much possibility because this makes use of digital control of analog technology. So you can have things like virtual modularity, which is what this is, controlling analog function, which is cool. It's basically what's happening with, like the Arturia matrix brew. So, although this is a totally different interface. Let's have a look at some of the sources. Sources being where the modulation is coming from. Velocity, mod wheel, as we saw, aftertouch. So there is aftertouch on this, and it can be used to modulate whatever you're interested in modulating with it. Key pitch, which is basically the keyboard effect. It's often called in filters, where the key, basically the voltage from the keyboard is how it originally worked, opens or closes the filter. So you could do that with waves. So you had a different wave on the bottom of the keyboard than on the top of the keyboard. I mean, there's a lot of ways you could direct key pitch as an interesting modulation. Key gate, obviously that is how long you hold the key down. So that can be used as a sort of squarish envelope in whatever way you would want. The tuning of oscillator 1, the level of oscillator 1 can be a modulation source, which is interesting. I can't even think of how that would be applied. Oscillator 2's tune and level 3, and then noise as a modulation source. As we saw, there's noise as a modulation source already in the LFO, but let's say both of your LFOs are doing some other thing. You can use straight noise as a modulation source in the matrix. So that's convenient. Filter 1's cutoff point can be a modulation source. So if you're thinking about it, and this might answer the question that I had previous about some of the other settings, if your filter 1 cutoff is being modulated by something else, it is moving, and you can use that movement to modulate a further thing, which is interesting, I guess. Resonance as a source, filter 2 cutoff and resonance, the spacing in the filter section, LFO1, of course, LFO1 fade in. This is where you can use the fade in to fade something else in, which is useful. LFO2 fade in. The filter envelope, this is the point where, it looks like we have a dedicated filter envelope and a dedicated amp envelope, but you actually can use them to control different things if you would like, especially if you are going to set the envelopes to loop. You can use the envelopes as an LFO. Amp envelope, like I said. And then, of course, there are CV inputs on the back of this thing. So it can be, it can interface with your modular system, and you can get wave modulations in from your external system through the CV ins. The same with a gate in. The same with the second CV in, and the same with the second gate in. You can use accent, the accents that you place in your sequencing as modulation sources. The same with the gates and ties that you set in your sequencing can be used to modulate other outcomes, which is great for making your sequences have a lot of variety. And, I hate to be incredibly boring, but let's talk about the destinations that the matrix can go to. Since we've talked about the sources, we should probably go over the destinations. Obviously, off is one. Volume, overall volume, that's a good destination to have. Oscillator 1 tune, oscillator 1 wave, which is a particular favorite of mine, because if you can modulate the wave and you have a variable wave shape like this has, you can actually do filter effects by using modulation to move from a high harmonic content wave to a low harmonic content wave, like a square to a triangle. I guess it depends on the arrangement of the waves, which I can't remember right now. But modulating wave shape is everything. It's fantastic. It's very powerful. Oscillator 1 level, which is pretty cool. Oscillator 2 tune wave level. Oscillator 2 FM amount. That's good. 3 tune wave level. Oscillator 3 FM amount. Noise level, which is good because you could certainly direct the mod wheel to that if you want to add noise at some point. Filter 1 cutoff, of course. Filter 1 res, of course. Filter 2 cutoff. Filter 2 res. Filter spacing. LFO1 wave. Modulating the wave of LFO1. That's a pretty cool thing. Rate. Wave rate on LFO2. Filter 1 envelope amount. Filter 2 envelope amount. amp envelope amount. Interesting. Drive amount. So when we get to the effects, which we're about to get to, delay amount. That's again one of the effects. Reverb amount. Mod amount is going to be the modulation effects, which are like chorus, flanger, those sorts of things. CV out 1, which is your modulation source, goes out CV out 1. CV out 2, the same but with CV out 2. Accent amount, again, in the sequencer. And then mod 1 amount, which is mod 1 being the channel of a modulation package, which is like in the matrix. Basically, a matrix channel. You're modulating the matrix channel that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way up to 16. So you can use something that will vary the amount of a modular arrangement that you have in one of your modular channels, which is, that's some complex stuff. You can really, you can get some very interesting effects doing such things, complex things. Okay, so that is basically an examination of, the destinations. So let us now try the thing where we press the data knob and go back and see what functionality we might be missing. Source, destination, amount, and then there's a fade in functionality here that you can use. Mod 3 fade in. You can use to control the various fade ins. You can use to control the various channels fade in, which is pretty cool. So basically you can set when the modulation takes place that you have set on a channel. So once you've made your choice of what channel, what source, what destination and amount, in the fade in section, you can then decide which of those 16 channels when that effect fades in, which I think is just over the top crazy, but definitely fantastic. So obviously I always feel guilty when demonstrating a section like this, because the truth of the matter is I can't really demonstrate modularity, because the whole magic of modularity is being able to, demonstrate each possible functional outcome. But of course, modularity makes it impossible to do that. There's just too many. So, but I think most people are pretty up on modularity these days with Eurorack. But anyhow, this is where you set your mod wheel, where you set your LFO, and where you can really make a lot of your functionality vary over time in very complex ways. So this instrument is capable of a very great deal, despite its rather calm exterior. All right, so that is the matrix section found on the IK Multimedia Synth Pro.